Hi, I'm Kevin Shafer, Executive Director, Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District.
Hi, I'm Yvonne McCaskill. I'm the coordinator of the Century City Triangle Neighborhood Association.
Hello, I'm Walter Hood, Creative Director of Hood Design Studio in Oakland, California. My first question is for Kevin. You're part of the initial group from Milwaukee that invited Mary Miss to propose a project. From your perspective as the head of the city's Water Protection Agency, what did you want her and the City of the Living Lab to accomplish?
It's important for everyone to understand the need for clean water, whether it's for drinking, for swimming, recreating, and everything that the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District does is trying to protect that natural resource of Great Lakes, the Lake Michigan, the lakefront, the rivers, and so forth. And I didn't feel like we were making the connection with the neighborhoods, with the Yvonne McCaskills of the world, to really show that what we were doing would help them, but also we needed their help as well to implement what we were doing. So what I wanted Watermarks to do, and it has done, is to help us make that connection, just another path to try to bring people to the table to talk about what we're doing. And art is just it's a visceral thing. I think everyone can connect to some form of art. And I think that as this system grows and as it becomes more prevalent, we'll see more people connected to how they can improve our water environment here in the Milwaukee area.
And from the beginning, you expressed the concern that watermarks be conceived at the scale of the city. Why is that important?
Well, I'm an engineer, so I think of things in a watershed scale. So I always think that, water flows downhill, and we can't just concentrate on one small area. We have to think about the entire city, and it has to be really the entire region. So I just felt, and I feel it's important that you bring everyone to the table and try to educate them all at the same time.
Well, we have Yvonne McCaskill with us, and in your years working with her, what have you learned from her as an engineer? I work with engineers and I love it because you guys are so lucid on one end, you know what you want to do, but you guys are also highly influenceable. So what have you learned from Yvonne?
What have I learned from Yvonne? Boy, how long do you have? She is a true advocate for her neighborhood. She's a true advocate for the people that live in her neighborhood. And to see someone with such passion care so much about where she lives, who she represents. I've really learned from her that you have to drill down to the neighborhood scale. You have to work with people one-on-one, and you have to respect their concerns. They may not have the same opinion that I have, but respect those opinions and their concerns, and then try to take what you learn from them and build from it, and don't, just brush it off. Yvonne's not one to let you brush anything off. she's just a really great person, and like I said, her passion is probably one of the things that I've learned. Passion for the neighborhood.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and for Yvonne, I've been working in the Harambe neighborhood now for maybe 3 or 4 years. And I know you're well known in Milwaukee for your activism across the spectrum of social and environmental justice. And I know Milwaukee is a place where these issues are paramount. And for you, what's the most concerns around water in the community?
Well, the most concern is access to clean, affordable water as a right, not a privilege. I think that the education of residents within communities, specifically of color, is very important. I can think growing up in Milwaukee, visiting the Lake Michigan, being around water, and I'm from Kentucky. Even as a young girl, my relationship to water. As I grew older and started to learn that there was really no equity in access to not only Lake Michigan water, recreational water, but sustainable water, the water we need to live.
Yeah.
And so growing older, getting wiser and smarter, once I became aware of that, then that was one of my missions. One of my other missions is to develop people, improve quality of life. So this was a natural fit.
You've been a critical advisor to Watermarks. And why do you think, well, what do you think can be achieved through this collaboration? You talked a lot about your concerns and experience, but what do you think you can achieve through this collaboration?
Well, I'm a real systems person. And so I know that it takes a systemic process, it takes a systemic effort in order to gain sustainability, if you will, across neighborhoods and across this city. So as I began to understand more about the Watermarks framework,
Mhm.
it really fit into what we were doing here in this neighborhood and trying to replicate our efforts across other neighborhoods, working with the utilities such as MMSD, Milwaukee Waterworks, and others. So I saw it as a way to be sustainable,
Mm.
to have something that can be replicated
Mhm.
at the neighborhood level that people can understand.
Mm.
We've been using art as a strategy to teach environmental stewardship for quite some time. And so I think that also fit right into our plan. So it is replicable, it is sustainable, and those are at least two of the reasons.
That's wonderful, because you're speaking to a next set of questions that I have for both of you. And what could you learn from the relationship that you and Kevin have built? You know, I mean, as you've gone through this collaboration, what could you both, or what could we learn as an audience and someone who maybe experiences in these spaces?
Well, in one of my other professions, I was an administrator, and so I kind of know what administrators do.
Mm.
And Kevin is very unique in his management style. He listens, he's open, and he's accessible. The people that work for him really respect him.
Mm.
And they respect him because they know that he's going to fight for what they need to do their job to deliver the services to us. Personally, I find Kevin to he's just a wonderful guy. I mean, what can I say? You know,
Yes.
I know he spoke very highly of me, and you know, I'm just down here at the grassroots level. And it's really difficult to find a manager with that type of a personality. Some of it is developed, and I just think some of it is from some good old-fashioned upbringing. But he takes his skills and his talents, and he acts on them. I can remember having a conversation with him about some of the presentations that MMSD was doing here in the neighborhood to mitigate flooding. And the presentations were kind of up here with the science and all of that. They need to be somewhere here, you know, and the next thing that I understood and knew it was happening. So that got my attention to say that he is listening. And I carry the voice of the community. This is not just Yvonne speaking. I'm speaking for the community as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. And Kevin, I'm going to change the question because she talked a lot about artists, and you know, as myself as an artist and a designer working with engineers, sometimes artists are looked off as like too conceptual. They really don't know what they're doing. And my question to you is, how can artists help make our cities more livable and just through this experience that you've had with Watermarks?
I think just being artists and really trying to take what you see and putting it out so folks, and you'll see things and you'll illustrate them in a different fashion, but be able to take everyday life and the importance of water, for me, the importance of water and how that impacts your everyday life. And then to show that in a community setting, in a neighborhood, along the riverfront, the lakefront, and to relay that that real deep need that we all have for clean water, whether it's to drink or to recreate in or just to stare at. But it's something where we need to be able to connect to people's hearts. And I know engineers, we connect to everyone's hearts, but but I know that's not true as well. And so I think really being able to draw that inner feeling out, and I think art does that. I think it really is a pathway for people to see and to relay how they feel about an issue. And in this case, it's clean water.
Is there a point in time where a light bulb went off in your career? Because I've worked with a few engineers, particularly traffic engineers, where they told me that there was a point where something just made sense to them. And I just wonder, you know, in your career, was there a point where something just snapped and was like, okay, I can't be like this, I have to be like this? Or is there something you can reference?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. Yes, you know, there's several different points in my life or milestones. Probably the one that turned things the most, and Yvonne lived through it, was the 2010 storms that we had in this area where there's massive flooding throughout the region. It's unfortunate that it takes a storm, a catastrophic storm, to get me to go from this to this. But it really opened my eyes to the impacts that climate change is going to have on our neighborhoods and on our city, in our region. And it opened my eyes to seeing that we needed to look at what we do in a different fashion. We need to implement in a different fashion. We need to talk about what we do in a different fashion. And we need to have people that care about everyone, you know, because it is very important. But living through 2010, I think, was probably one of the biggest changes for me.
You know, I said before, Kevin as a manager also listens. And so art across the city is pretty prevalent. I mean, we have a number of great artists who work within our communities. So art in communities is not new. But what I believe happened here with Kevin is looking at what was happening in the neighborhoods with art, listening to the people that work for him who are close to the grassroots and communities about how art can be used as a strategy to get to those ends of equity and justice and education, really played a role. So I'm not speaking for Kevin, but I'm speaking as an observer of what I see and how I perceive this rolling out.